We're going to kick off today with a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I know to the panelists as well, growing the workforce and incorporating diversity. Mike Hershberg, Executive Director of Vertical Flight Society, is going to monitor this conversation, and I will turn it over to him.
All right, thanks so much, Yolanda. So I talked briefly in my opening remarks on Tuesday about some of the challenges with workforce, and this is really important for many reasons, which we'll go through here in this this discussion with our two distinguished panelists. Next chart. So I showed this chart on Tuesday and showed, there's billions of dollars now, probably about a total of $10 billion that have gone into eVTOL over the last few years. There's about half of that going in the first few months of 2021. And I said, it takes about $1 billion, 1,000 employees, and about 10 years to get to a certified product. Next chart. And so, where are all those employees going to come from? Where are all those engineers? Probably about half, or maybe as much as two-thirds are engineers or technical employees. So last year we did a study when Joby and other companies started really hiring, and we forecast that we're going to need about 1,000 new engineers per year to enter the workforce, and that's over and above the normal hiring. There's dozens of eVTOL companies that are trying to hire both lots and not so much at a time. Just looking at the conventional rotorcraft industry, so Bell and Sikorsky are both advertising for more than 200 open jobs for their rotorcraft program. So Future Vertical Lift is also billions of dollars of military program development. Whereas Joby, Archer, and Lilium, they're the three that have the biggest hiring demands. I looked a couple months ago, and they had they had almost 500 jobs, and about half of those were in engineering. So the details on some different commentaries, links to reports, things like that are on our workforce page. So we see this as a critical challenge for the future vertical workforce. We're doing some additional studies that Danielle is leading. This is kind of what we came up with. This is a war for talent. There's going to be cutthroat competition for getting the top talent and even any talent at a lot of the eVTOL and rotorcraft companies. So some of the different things we propose, and we have done lots of panels on this topic. But things like, increase university funding for VTOL engineering degrees. So some different government programs, NASA and Army and others have different research programs. We collectively need to harness this incredible future that we see in generating more interest in STEM careers. So everybody on this call, everybody that is in the today's workforce, need to really go out and do outreach to schools and things like that to try and get more kids excited about STEM. Today's high school students will be in the workforce in 5 years, so they're going to be key players in developing this new future vertical workforce. And another really important thing, increasing diversity outreach. How do we get more employees into vertical flight? Well, we got to find constituencies, demographics that aren't normally attracted, and look for underrepresented demographics, highlight their talent, to attract other potential candidates, and improve inclusivity. So it's one thing to hire more diverse candidates, but if they don't feel included, if they don't have an inclusive environment, then they're not going to stay. Oops. Sorry, next chart. So just there's a great website called datausa.io. It's got all kinds of different information on aerospace engineering. I did a commentary in our latest Vertiflight magazine that highlighted some of the different stats and data, which I've shown here. Aviation Week and AIAA also do surveys and have data that shows what's in the workforce, in the aerospace and defense workforce, but this specifically looks at aerospace engineers. And so, 88% of aerospace engineers are men, whereas, of course, it's about 50% of the actual US population. 72% are white, compared to 61% of the population. 6% Black Americans, only 1.5% Latino or Hispanic Americans. So you can see they're very much underrepresented from what the actual population is. And you can't just say minorities, because Asian aerospace engineers, Asian Americans, have a higher representation. So in the US, we have a lot of, actually in vertical flight, in the rotorcraft industry, we have a lot of engineers who are of Indian descent and Chinese and Korean, and that's great. But we really need to target those demographics that are not attracted to vertical flight and are not feeling included and don't have an inclusive environment, so that we can take advantage of all these different pipelines for talent. So beyond just the social justice reasons of why we should be more reflective of what the population is, it's also a dollars and cents initiative. We have got to attract more engineers to vertical flight, and one way to do that is to look at those demographics that aren't normally attracted. So now, next chart. So now we're going to have a friendly fireside chat, or as Yolanda said, is we're sitting next to the monitor, so it's a monitor side chat, I guess. And very pleased to have Danielle McLean with us today. She's the founder and CEO of Happy Takeoff, which is a hydrogen fuel cell eVTOL company. She previously worked in the industry at Spirit Aerosystems in various engineering roles. Before Spirit, she founded an audio-visual production company where she served as a chief technology officer for 10 years. Danielle is passionate about gender equality and underrepresented groups in engineering. Marilyn Smith is a professor at the School of Aerospace Engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology, or Georgia Tech, and she's the director of the Vertical Lift Research Center of Excellence. Her research encompasses computational unstudied aerodynamics and aeroelasticity for complex configurations, including rotorcraft, where she has over 200 publications. And she importantly currently serves as a technical director for the Vertical Flight Society. So with that introduction, I wanted to hand it over to Danielle. And Danielle, you can give your perspective on diversity in vertical flight.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mike. Great introduction. Perfect segue into the study. So yeah, like Mike said, I've been working on this workforce development study, and we're looking at the AAM industry and how does that look. And it's really so far almost exactly in line with those numbers that Mike said. So aerospace engineering overall is 88% male, and that's what we're seeing in the eVTOL space. And so, my whole thing is, if we're innovating aircraft, we're literally making, flying taxis, we're doing things that people think are impossible, we should be able to do better in terms of diversity and inclusion. And I think there's really 3 parts to that. And that's make people aware, attract them, and then include them. And as Mike said, my background was audio and video engineering, but that's my nice bio. Some of you have seen my viral video on TikTok and LinkedIn, and I won't get into that here. But my past has been anything but easy. And when I was growing up, I didn't know that engineering was a thing. I certainly didn't know that aerospace engineering was a thing. And I would have never in a million years thought that I could have a job doing this. I didn't even know what it was. And I didn't even learn about it until a random person at the airport kind of put this little bug in my ear. And I have no idea who this guy was, but I often refer to him as, sort of a guardian angel. But just that one conversation changed the trajectory of my life. And so I think it's so important that we reach people that aren't always hearing about these types of careers. And then we have to attract them to it, and then we have to include them. And I think a lot of people struggle with the inclusion piece of it. But I'll give you a quick analogy and then I'll pass it over to Marilyn. And so I thought of this the other day, and I love using analogies, but let's say that you're a woman and you're going in to get your hair done, or maybe imagine if you're a man, maybe imagine your wife or your feminine partner that wants to go into a fancy hair salon and get, you know, their hair done all fancy, and you walk in, and or your wife walks in or whoever, and the person that's going to do their hair is a man dressed like a mechanic. You probably wouldn't have that much faith in them doing your hair, and that's bias of us, right? But that's sort of how it feels being a woman going into a male dominated space. That it's, I don't think people are trying to be, you know, mean to us or not listen to us, but this doesn't look like what you would expect an engineer to look like. So we need to do better sort of defining that and really showing. That's why we want to highlight women and people of color in this space, because the more that we see this is what, you know, an engineer looks like, then the more we can sort of include people. And so with that, I will pass it to Marilyn.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. Indeed, I agree. Having a role model to show that someone like you is in the system, and even more importantly, the higher the better that they are in the system, to show that there is a path for advancement, that you're not just going to be, you know, on the lowest ranks of the workforce. But yeah, I mean, everything you said, Mike, is so important as well. And I think that we need, as universities, to be a little more agile in doing that. I know that I'm trying to do several things at Georgia Tech to try to improve some of that, especially as we're talking here with the eVTOL community. We're implementing classes in eVTOL because we have to train people to be able to do the work. But more importantly, if you look at the history of our VTOL engineers that we hire, they're typically masters and PhDs. We need to have a better route to include our bachelor's degree people, because they have a lot to offer. And so one of the things that we're doing here is we're taking our coursework and we're proposing a certificate in VTOL and eVTOL, so that employers will know actually that the people have the same kind of development and coursework that many master's degree students already have. So there's no need to wait and hire a master's degree student. In terms of outreach, you know, we need to look not only at students at the K-12 level, but we also need to look at other engineering aspects where the employment's going down. So, you know, eVTOL is going up, others are going down. So how can we get those people into eVTOL? You know, is there a training module that we can do to provide the basics for them so that they can transition easily? We know they have the experience. They've got great engineering skills, but they just need to know a little bit about eVTOL. So how do we do that? I would really love to hear back from the community on how we do that. I've got my ideas, but of course, you know, I'm in academia. I've been here for a number of years, although I did work in industry. So, you know, some inputs would be great. And finally, I think we need to tell our folks out there, you know, you can help. You've got small businesses, perhaps, or maybe you work for an OEM, but it could be something as simple as helping to get a local high school or even middle school to set up, say, you know, a drone racing club or something, a UAS camp. Anything that catches their interest. You don't need to invest a ton of time. You don't need to invest a lot of money. It's just getting them engaged and getting them to actually look at what we're doing. And I think things will take over from that. So what do you think, Mike and Danielle?
Well, I'll say, you know, when I was in high school, it was during the space shuttle days, and so that was something. I mean, I originally was going to go into like English or philology or something like that. I like to write, as many of you guys know, and edit. But I think it was really the space shuttle flights that really said, hey, this is aerospace engineering. That's really cool. Wouldn't I like to do that? And even just looking back to a couple months ago, this is old news now, but the Mars helicopter, right? So that was something even the space guys said, hey, we need help designing a helicopter. We don't know how to design a helicopter. So we need to tap into the expertise in the vertical flight world to make something that can fly on a different world. So looking for different things to inspire people, so they have more options, right? So it's I didn't have the greatest engineering background. I didn't have calculus in high school because well,
Did
I'm not
Neither
as
did
smart
I.
as and I'm not as smart as a lot of the people in this audience, right? But I suffered through it. I got my engineering degree, and it's been a fantastic opportunity. And we need to kind of show that hey kids, when we go to other planets, you've got to design a helicopter that'll fly on a different planet, or flying cars. I mean, you can't get really any cooler than eVTOL stuff. So I think inspiring the next generation, whether that's in elementary, middle, high school, or once they're in aerospace engineering, don't go into that space stuff. Don't go into hypersonics, right? You want a real challenge. We need to make eVTOL work. Marilyn, there's actually a question from the audience, and just said, I don't know if you saw this. Does the demographic mix of engineers in general go back to education, specifically advanced mathematics and concepts in physics? So why don't you answer that?
I don't know the details for K-12, but I did see some information on the demographics for women and underrepresented minorities currently in our undergraduate programs across the U.S. in aerospace engineering. Right now, women are about 20%. They make up about 20% of the student cohort coming in, both graduate and undergraduate. And underrepresented minorities, which is everyone's lumped together, unfortunately, so I can't break that down. That's trending a little bit lower, less than 10%. So around 8 to 10% are the numbers that I saw. So we definitely need a better outreach to those people. Mike, you mentioned something. You didn't have calculus in high school, neither did Danielle, and neither did I. And that brings up a point that a lot of the people in the lower socioeconomic levels, particularly, in rural areas where we know that's a big demographic, their parents didn't go to college. So they don't even know what it means to go to college. They need help. The teachers may not know, they may have gone to college, but, likely their parents went to college already. So another thing that people can help is to go out and volunteer to help students understand how to go to college, where to find financial aid. What happens, can you find work on campus? Yes, you can. So you can have a part-time job on campus to help pay. There are lots of different opportunities. And if you don't know, reach out to people that you know in academia. If you don't know anybody in academia, call me. I'll be glad to help you. This is important, and this is how we're going to reach those demographics. It's not just urban areas where students live. It's the rural areas are very diverse themselves, and that's where a lot of people are having children. And also, apparently, I just found this out yesterday, that a lot of folks that live on family farms, in order to keep those family farms going, at least one person in the family needs to be doing something other than farming to help the family. So this is a great opportunity to do that.
So Danielle, we're about out of time. You have any final closing comments or insights that you'd like to share?
Yeah, just real quick, back to something Marilyn said, the higher up that we see the diversity, the better. And I'll just sum that up by saying, a lot of startups, you know, they want to found companies with their friends or people that think like them, and I get that. You know, our company's founded by my daughter and me, and so we tend to found companies with the people that are like us, but then, you know, and then we grow really fast, and then we sort of pass it down the chain of command to be, you know, hire diverse people. But if we can't figure that out from the jump, that, you know, hey, we're all, you know, we're all this one way, then you can't really expect to see that diversity at the lower levels of the jobs. You're just not going to. It doesn't trickle down. It starts. It doesn't trickle up. I mean, it trickles down. So that's the start at the top, and it starts on the cap table. And we'll be talking about more, you know, on that in future sessions. But yeah, that would just be what I would say. We need to look at that. We need to learn how to innovate those cap tables. Only 2% of startups that are funded are owned by women.
Yeah, very important. So again, you know, look at our website, vtol.org/workforce. We have a number of reports. We've got commentaries on this. With Danielle, VFS is launching a new initiative called Diversify. We're trying to help the industry grow by bringing in more engineers, growing the future vertical workforce. We need your help to, you know, we're a small nonprofit. We can't do everything. We can't do that much without our people. So if you're trying to hire, if you're a company that's trying to hire, you know, reach out to Danielle. We've got different we're you know, different resources we're developing. We've got a STEM website with resources people can use for outreach, all kinds of things. And you know, VFS is the educational nonprofit for vertical flight. We're trying to support the industry as it grows. So with that, thank you, Danielle, and thank you, Marilyn, for your insights. And back over to you, Yolanda.
Thanks, Mike, and Danielle and Marilyn. I'm really pleased to have had this conversation at EAS. It's the first time we've had a conversation about this, and it's long overdue.